Good morning. My name is Morgan Craven. I'm the National Director of Policy at the Intercultural Development Research Association. I'm testifying against the bill. So we have a couple of concerns with the bill. The first is that it unnecessarily widens the path to DAEPs. We think it's really, really important to address harassment, whether that's harassment directed at teachers or harassment directed at students. And it's really frustrating when we hear that administrators are responding that they cannot do anything when there is harassment, because there are things that they can do. There are good decisions, however, and there are decisions that end up being harmful and ineffective for students. One good thing that could be done is to implement behavior threat assessment teams, as the first witness mentioned. And this is something that is in Representative Bonin's comprehensive school safety bill that was passed out of this committee that would actually work and is evidence-based to actually address behavior and change behavior and make sure that it doesn't continue to happen. DAEPs, on the other hand, we know have been identified by TEA as a risk factor for school dropout. They remove a student from a setting without often providing enriching academic experiences or important social interactions, and so they can actually make underlying issues worse for students, and then the students come back to their general classroom and the teachers have to continue to deal potentially with a situation that could be addressed in a different way, whether that's through mental health supports or needs that the family or the student might have. The second concern we have is that when vague offenses like harassment are punished, it often really depends on who the student is and how the teacher is interpreting that student's behavior. So we know from plenty of research that Black students, Latino students, students with disabilities, and LGBTQ students are judged differently than their peers, even for the exact same behavior, and they are often punished. They're more likely to be punished, and those punishments are harsher, and again, that's for the exact same behavior. And that's our concern when we have an offense that really depends on the interpretation of an educator. And then the final thing I'll say is that school districts already have the option to send students to DAEP for harassing behavior. Any school district in the state could write this into their student code of conduct. They do have to follow those mitigating factors that were mentioned earlier, including considering self-defense intent, past discipline history, and disabilities, and that's why this bill is essentially a redundancy. Our fear is that by creating this redundancy, the bill really suggests to districts that they can ignore these factors, which can be really harmful for students.
Okay. You worked at a high school?
I have.
Okay, which one?
It's a high school in Atlanta, Georgia.
Okay. And so if you were in the classroom and a student came up to you and threatened, harassed you, and you didn't have a way, because we don't right now, to be able to send that child away. I mean, they're threatening to kick your butt, do something like that. I mean, that happens.
We do have ways to remove students who do that. That's, as I mentioned.
There's a reason the bill exists, Morgan. So the reason this bill exists is because the ability, you heard from what the person who represents the classroom teachers has said, is that this happens. And so we've gone from kids misbehaving and going to the coach's office to be disciplined, which we do not do anymore, right? To now the other flip side of it is teachers that are in the classroom are worried about this, and they're saying, hey, we need some more protections for ourselves if we're willing to go do this.
And like I mentioned, I think it's terrible that a teacher or a student would feel unsafe in class, and so we have to do something to address that. And I think that this committee has already voted out a bill that would address that through behavior threat assessments. It's an evidence-based system that actually, if a consequence, it approves appropriate consequences, including sending students to DAEP, or provides them with other services that they might need to actually address the behavior.